squad over 20 years that might not, foot the bill. Do we want to move forward?
So all we're doing tonight is approving the grant and
Permission
setting,
to seek, yeah.
and setting in motion the design of the facility. Then you're going to bring it back to us with a budget and a go, no go.
You're just approving the mayor to execute the grant application to seek grant funds. That's all you're doing tonight.
And then, so our next decision point would be you're bringing us back a budget. This is what I told you. This is what we actually came back with. This is going to be the city's financial commitment.
So after tonight, sir, the next step would be I'll bring you an engineering contract from Barge to design the project.
Okay.
And then after that, after we get bid prices in, I'll bring it back to you to accept the grant and move forward with the project. So you got
Gotcha.
2 steps ahead of this one.
Gotcha. All right. So anything else on third quarter? Everybody feel good about where we're at? I do. Even though a lot of these are rolling over from Q2 to Q3, most of them are. We're in the home stretch on most of them. So as you can see, we intentionally have a light fourth quarter because inevitably some of those will roll over there. But we really are. I say we. The Jonathan, Mayor, and staff are really knocking out a lot of our priorities. So it looks like we're on track to have another good year as far as council initiatives and priorities. All right, so with that, we'll move on to our agenda for this evening. If y'all can turn with me in your big packet, we'll try to work through this quickly. We've still got a few agenda items and hopefully get a little bit of a recess in there before our 6 o'clock meeting. So roll call, open prayer and pledge allegiance, approve the agenda. Then we've got our consent agenda, which is work session meeting, accounts meeting minutes from June 18th, and accounts payable. We've got our contract billings, which you should have got the backup for that in our packets last week. So that's Holland Contracting for the new corporate hangar, Barge for the new corporate hangar, Poly for Parks and Rec survey, and Fine Getty for our state governmental affairs contract. Then we got travel requests from engineering, Main Street, and police department, and a request to dispose of inventory from administrative. Anything on the consent agenda anybody wants to discuss or pull out for separate consideration? All right. We've got a certificate presentation from the mayor for John Ed Steed and County Queens, and then privilege of the floor and staff reports. There's no old business tonight. We do have some new business, though, so we won't discuss this tonight because it's just introducing for the record a request from Boyd from Longleaf to move from townhouse to planned residential district. Scott, anything we need to know about that now? Or
No.
Okay, so obviously we'll have a public hearing to get briefed on all that. That's what the next item is on, is calling that public hearing on August 6th. Then we've got funding assistance for the FY 2025 airport improvements. Is this our just normal request, Jonathan?
Yes.
All right. Any questions on that? We do this every year. This is for the from State Department of Transportation, but requesting our annual funds. And then we've discussed already the next item, which is the grant for the funding assistance for the aircraft hangar. So we've already discussed that. Next item is CDBG Community Enhancement Fund Assistant. You want to brief us on that?
This is, kind of a continuance of the demolition projects over the last few years. I can't remember if there's been 4 or 5 kind of consecutive.
I think we do it every year.
So just to make you aware, CDBG grant program through ADECA is typically in the 80-20 split. capped out at $450,000 is typically what the grant program will allow you to seek, up to $450,000. The CDBG program can be used for other things. So if the council at some point would like to ever change that, it's not that this is the only thing you can use CDBG funding for. But this seems to be, blight elimination seems to be a very hot topic with the administration that I'm standing before today. And that's why the staff had worked to prepare this and seems to think that you would like to continue that. Is that still the case?
Everybody good with just rolling on? I mean, it seems like it's something that we know, we understand, we've got the resources to execute it.
And it's been effective. I mean, if
Absolutely.
you don't have to drive very far from this area or from downtown to see the impact that it makes when people sign up for that program.
Yeah. I would say, I would caveat my opinion of it with, I'm supportive of it until we really struggle to find participants. I know there's been some more challenges, but it sounds like we're confident we're still going to get participation.
We are, and frankly, you know, some of that is just getting the word out. A lot of people are, that I've found anyway, are reluctant to sign up for a government program because they think it may obligate them to something else or scrutiny. But once they understand it, a lot of people, this is the only way that the city would have, you know, carrot versus stick.
Yeah.
That we can offer to help them out and alleviate a nuisance property.
Yeah, so we're bringing the stick now, and it'll be a lot easier to get them to take the carrot when we have the stick too, right?
That's
We're
right.
going to have option A and option B for them now.
That's right.
Okay, great. All right, so next item is to accept grant funds to authorize the mayor to execute agreement for 8M wastewater treatment facility upgrades. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Anything, I mean, this is related to our wastewater treatment plans that we hope to let out in fourth quarter.
If you recall, we were awarded, we were a recipient of those funds. We had some for the water department, roughly amounted to $1.7 million, and a little over $3.5 million for sewer. So, you know, as we talked about on the goals, Barry has selected an engineer to help develop the scope of work on the project. Barry, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on that, but
Sir, just real short, we did something like this back at a previous, I think almost a year ago. The number changed just a little bit in the grant amount by a few dollars. And just to be, for transparency purposes, I want to bring it back to council again so that you're authorizing the mayor to execute the grant for that exact dollar. That's the exact figure that's going in the application for the wastewater treatment plant upgrades.
All right, any questions on these grant funds? All right. Next item is to authorize the mayor to execute an Alabama Power agreement for lighting and pickleball courts. These are parking lot lights, aren't they?
they are.
So it's just our standard agreement with Alabama Power when they put in dust to dome lights.
That's right. And they'll take over.
I got a quick question. When we get to phase 2 at some time way down, we won't have to reposition these lights because it's going to be over there in that parking area. So that was my one concern was, I know we need that lit over there for everybody, but will we be charged again if we have to move those when we put the 8 courts out that way? So I'm putting the cart way ahead.
So the 3 lights that we have there are in the perimeter of it. 2
Right.
of those lights are on the front that will not have to be moved. There's one towards the back of that layout that will probably have to be moved. But if the courts double or increase in size, you'll want to put Musco lighting system, the same lighting system you have on the pickleball courts now. So one of those would have to have some rework done to it.
But that's going to be a multi-$100,000 project, and
Right. That'll be a
moving
very,
one light
very
is
small portion.
going to be a small line item.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And what we would do is, you know, we would still need parking lot lighting, is we would probably take that light that's there and relocate that out, move the parking lot out in front
Yeah.
of both
Like we
sets of
talked about.
courts. So
Mhm.
I don't think it'd be a waste, sir. I think it'd just be a relocation
Mhm.
of those 3 lights to a different location.
Super. Thank you.
Any other questions on the pickleball parking lot lighting? All right, next item is to authorize the Main Street Director to execute a grant application for Main Street, Alabama.
I don't see Mariah. She was just in the back. So we have talked about several needs in the downtown area. So I think Mariah had asked Barry to look at a couple of other intersections. There's only one right now around the Boll Weevil Monument that actually have crosswalk buttons. So the intersections, I think it's along Lee Street and then further down. Do you know the cross section there? But they were basically about $6,000 each, plus some labor that would go along with that. I think the max amount for that grant was $25,000 that she was going to seek. It's a 100% grant. And I think they had a few other projects, but that was the main impetus of the grant, was to improve safety and get crosswalk signalization and buttons there.
So no real, there she is.
Right. Hey, sorry, I didn't see you back there, so I tried to say what I could.
Yes, so the Main Street Alabama grant is up to $25,000 for a project that we consider beneficial to our community. The guidelines would allow for us to basically pay to have crosswalk buttons added to the intersections of Lee Street and Grubb Street. So that was a very important thing to our business owners after surveying them. So that's what we would like to pursue. They pay half of it at the time of awarding it, and then the other half after the project's complete. It has to be completed within a year. So we're just looking for approval to move forward on that.
All right, any questions or concerns on seeking that grant? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, the next item is to designate implementing a transit provider, which I believe just continues doing what we've been doing, right?
Yeah, and it also, by doing that, it allows them to seek ALDOT funding for, buses, maintenance, drivers for labor. So they go to those funds instead of the city applying for them. If you remember, the beauty of this is that we don't have to create our own transportation system.
Yep.
Some of those funds up front are on an 80-20 basis, and then they gradually run into a 50-50 type split. And so they have their own maintenance facilities and fleet, but in order to replenish buses, pay their staff, the reason that they can provide this service in the city for $150,000 from the city is because they're able to get match grant funds.
So cities have access to these funds, and we're just going to designate them as our proxy to go get the funds.
That's correct.
Yep. All right, any questions on that? All right, then we've got, which we discussed this at our last council work session, was nominating and electing Jody Linton to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, seat 7 supernumerary, which he's previously served as a supernumerary. We're just putting him back in that seat because of some musical chairs. Everybody's still good with that? All right. That is all of our regular session. Of course, we've got the E911 board meeting, which will be integrated into this meeting. And the only item we have on the agenda is to approve accounts payable A for $4,149.66. Any questions on that? Of course, we can get with Tangi during the meeting. But all right, so that's all of our agenda. Jonathan, you have anything to you good with this agenda?
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody good with approving it as submitted? All right. Our next item on the agenda is garbage collection update.
So Barry, I don't know if you're prepared during the work session, or do you want to do this during the staff comments? Okay. Well, I've got 15 to 20 minutes for you here, if you want to take it. So, council, I over the last few weeks and months, I know we continue to get occasional complaints. Sometimes it sounds louder than others. I do want to take an opportunity to tell you and brag in general on the quality of service that our sanitation department continues to provide for the city of Enterprise. Barry has worked on a presentation here to kind of give you an update on some things that separate fact from fiction on some of these, or feelings, as we say. But, in general, you look at the number of customers that our sanitation department serves on a weekly basis, and, the percentage of times we get it right, it is really high. And so I just want to commend them for the work that they do. We can always get better, and we're committed to do that. And so I'm going to turn it over to Barry and let him tell you where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. I want to start off by giving you a quick update about where we are with the sanitation department. Public Works has got several departments, but the sanitation department's one of those. You may know this, you may not, but I thought I'd start off with just a little bit of background on it. We've got roughly 10,500 customers in the city. When I say a customer, that's a house that receives garbage. We have in the department 29 employees. So I'm not going to read that other stuff to you, but there's a breakdown of what we do every day. We have 5 automated garbage trucks that run basically 4 days a week. And some of those guys are cross-trained. They run boom trucks. They run automated garbage truck, depending on what's going on the day. You can see we're kind of all over the place. We do everything from cardboard to handicap to taking stuff to the grinding site. When you see things grinding, that's taken to our site where it's tree limbs and trash, like leaves and that kind of stuff, organic material. And when you see the word county, that's where it goes to the county landfill. But we currently run five automated garbage trucks, 5 rear loaders, 5 knuckle booms, and we have 29 employees. Just a quick, how are we doing? I get some messages from council, from the mayor's office about, hey, we got a customer complaint, or we got everywhere you go check this out. So I thought it'd be good to kind of start off with how are we doing? We've got, for the month of June, we closed out June with 380 Public Works sanitation calls. We log every single call that comes into the desk, and then it gets classified by what that is. So 380 Public Works calls related to sanitation. I broke those out by 3 main categories for you. One is just general information. Hey, what time is the garbage pickup? What are you doing? I need a new can. My wheels broke. I need something. It's informational purposes only. 267 of those 380 were informational, and that's a pie graph kind of showing that about 3/4 of the call are informational that call into the front counter. The other roughly quarter, you missed my garbage can. The green area up there is you missed my garbage can, the container that's there. 71 calls where you missed my garbage can. I'm going to tell you, I don't know. The guys that drive by, they say they get them. Did they get them? Did they miss them? Did the truck drive by and they rolled it to the street? It doesn't matter. At the end, if they call Public Works, they say, hey, you missed my can. We go back out and we clean up all of those that they call in, and we would do that for any resident that we can comply with. We try to give great customer service in that area. The one that we seem to continue to have issues with is in the bulk garbage, where it comes to yard waste and or county bulk items. We had 42 calls for the month of June, and that was either you missed my pickup, when are you going to do that? But there's 42 of those, and I'll talk a little bit later about what I think those are and how we can get better at that. I'll tell you that we are not perfect, and our guys, as much as they try, they're not perfect. But I think we can get those numbers down and we can do a better job, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. Just to put it in proportion, how well are we doing? Out of the 10,487 customers we currently have, we're getting 0.1% callback on garbage cans, and we're getting 0.17% callback on bulk garbage is 0.1%, 0.17 is on carts. So in a proportion, we're doing 90. If everybody else was happy, and I'm not saying they are, but if they're all happy, we're doing 99.8% good. But we need to focus on those 42 and those 71 calls, because I don't like anyone to be upset with the services that we're providing at the city, and I think we still can do better there, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Also, I want to point out to you two things. One, the red line you see there is the garbage that we're collecting. And as you see, and this goes back 20 years, like 2001 to 2023 is where I stopped the data. You can see that we've been collecting more garbage. Well, that's because the city's growing, right? We're getting more customers, we have more houses. And you see a big peak around 2020, 2021. We related that to COVID. People being at home, they're not going out to eat as much. They're generating more garbage at the house. You see that peak coming up at 2021, 2022, and coming back down. I think it would have come down a lot more, but I still think because of the growth that we're seeing, the number of houses, number of customers, it's not tapering back off like it was before. So 2024 is still up about, if you look on the graph, about 14,000 tons of garbage we collected in 2023. The employees there is in the green line. So if you look back in the early 2000s, we were running almost 36, or right at 36 employees. What happened at 2018? That's when the city quit picking up recycling cans. So we had 6 people, roughly 6 or 8 people in that program that were going out and picking up those cans. We repurposed those people and put them in other departments in Public Works. So that's why you see a great reduction in the staff that goes down to 2018. And then we've been maintaining about 28 people, and we're currently at 29 people in the sanitation department at Public Works. But as you can see, the garbage keeps going up, but our staff has stayed relatively level for all intents and purposes. The current ordinances we have, you've seen this before, and I don't want to waste your time on this, but I want to point these out. The current ordinances, these are things that are already approved on the books. It says that we're supposed to pick up basically household garbage every week, and we're supposed to pick up rubbish, which are the bulk items, every 2 weeks. I'm telling you, we are doing that. My goal would be if your garbage to be picked up on Monday, we pick it up on Monday. For the month of June, the worst that we were 3 days behind schedule at one point. So we've never been more than 3 days behind schedule on picking up bulk garbage in people's yards. I'm not saying we didn't miss somebody's yard, 1 out of 10,000 people, but for the most part, anyone that I have checked or had Shannon double check or Derek double check, we're on schedule no worse than 3 days, and our goal is to make that to be on time. The other one I want to point out was, the trees and limbs and stuff that people bring to the street, they're not supposed to be more than 6 inches in diameter and not longer than 6 feet in length, and we're still having issues with that now. The removal of debris, this is a huge item. Anything that's scrap lumber, plaster roof, anything to do with remodeling your house, drywall, paint, that kind of stuff, will not be removed by the sanitation department, but by the owner, and be privately removed. And talking to Shannon, I'm going to tell you, in the past, we have picked this up, and we have done this, especially if it gets put on the street, the sanitation guys don't want to leave a pile behind, and they pick that up. So what we're looking at the ordinance, these are the things we should follow. These are the rules we should be providing, is following the rules that are on the books, and we shouldn't be picking those things up. That's formulating a lot of the calls that we're getting at Public Works in the bulk department. You didn't pick my garbage up. Got one today. Didn't pick my garbage up. Went and looked at it, and it's construction debris. So it's an educational process of the resident and the citizen, and I'll talk a little bit more about how I can resolve that issue. Also, we have that if it's more than a truckload, that we charge you $25 per truckload to haul it there, plus $1.50 for landfill fee. I tell you that's too low. We can debate what that right answer is, but I can tell you it's not $25 plus $1.50. So those are just what's on the books currently. So what are we seeing in the field? These are some pictures you've already seen. There's a lot of this. There's a lot of small piles people put by the yard, and we love seeing that, and that's what we're designed and staffed to handle. But there's a whole lot of this. A lot of construction debris on the left, which are fences and stuff, which we should not be picking up. And then debris on the right, which is way more than what's typical and routine for what we would expect to see in the field. Just some more pictures of that. You can see in the bottom right, those are not 6 inches in diameter or less. And the limbs on the left are not longer, or definitely longer than 6 feet in length. And I'm not going to waste your time. You've seen some of those. So path forward, what would I recommend to do? There's three points or phases of this that I'd like to implement. 1, enforcing the current ordinances. I'll talk to you about that. 2, communicating with the public. And 3, updating our sanitation ordinances. Number 1, enforcing it. So we are required to pick up the household, like in the can, once a week. And we pick up rubbish every 2 weeks. I think we ought to keep that on track. Even if we get behind, we're still not violating our own ordinance there. I think we keep that. Second, the issue that we have is not just encouraging people, but making them, people should be putting their garbage behind the curb in their yard and not in the street. Per the ordinance, it clearly states that that's a misdemeanor, and they shouldn't be doing it, and they should be charged with a misdemeanor. And I think we ought to continue pushing that, educating people, and gradually getting them to say, hey, you need to get this behind, we'll give you a warning, but if you keep putting it in the street, we're going to have to do something. That, number one, it causes a safety concern, people driving down the street. Two, if we get a stormwater event, it clogs up our storm drains, it creates flooding, it creates a lot of problems. So those two that are currently ordinances, I think we need to start really getting serious about enforcing. Number two, communication. So I've been talking to Emily about how do we get better. There's a lot of information on a sanitation page about what we do, what we don't do. I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of words, it's hard to read. People typically are not going to read it and go through it and figure it out. We've talked about some examples how to streamline that, how to make it easier for them to get the information, how to absorb that. So working with Emily to update our page, our webpage on that. But second, what I think the biggest issue is, honestly, is our guys in the field are passing by the garbage saying that's construction debris. We shouldn't pick that up. They're calling the nuisance group or the code enforcement group to go meet with the property owner, and they're doing their best to go out there and meet with the property owner. Sometimes that happens that day, sometimes it happens a week later. It depends on what's going on in engineering. So what I'd like to do, effective immediately, and this is something that's in my control and I will take care of this, is having our sanitation group continue that. If they determine that it's out of conformance for them to pick it up, for them to have a sticky note, and to put it on the front door of the house and say, we did not pick up your garbage, and this is the reason why, and tell them what to do. A better communication with the citizen about what's going on and why we didn't do that. I think that's one of the biggest areas that I can do, that our department can do, that the city can do to help our residents understand why we didn't do that, which would hopefully stop most of the phone calls to say, you missed my garbage. It should be clear, we missed your garbage because you were out of compliance and we're not going to pick it up, but here's what you can do to get it cleaned up. The third part of that is update the sanitation ordinances. This is something I'm asking you, your permission or your concurrence or input on, is to do three things here, or four things. One, when Rayner was city attorney here, he and I had several discussions. There's nothing in the ordinance that says that a citizen must have garbage. If they come and say, I don't live here, or there's nobody in the house, I want to discontinue garbage, they do that, we shut the garbage off, and someone move in, and sometimes we don't catch it. Sometimes they continue garbage service without paying for garbage. I think the ordinance needs to be, or my recommendation is that it's mandatory. If you're in the city limits and you're getting a water bill, you should get a garbage bill. And we should make that a mandatory thing to do. Number one, it would cut down on our paperwork and our confusion in Public Works to try to understand, we need to go get that can because they didn't pay for garbage. Oh, now we need to go out there and put a can back out there. Or what happens if someone else, they left it and someone stole the can? It's a confusion issue. I think that the citizens ought to pay for it if they receive the service. Second, we need to put some kind of a volumetric requirement on what we're going to pick up as their basic service. For the most part, people pick up, or that live in a house, a routine yard maintenance. And this is my recommendation, a 6 foot, grown my height, 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot is routine. We can pick that up. It takes us 2 to 4 scoops in a truck. It's not too bad. If you can do that, that's included in your basic service. If not, basically have it in there that if anything more than that, call this number. We'll come give you a cost on it. You can utilize our services, or you can do it yourself, or you can take it to the grinding site. Any one of those three options will work. But come up with some kind of volumetric limitation for yard waste. The third one there is appliances. We are getting people that are doing remodeling and all, and then we end up with, or they kick out a tenant out of a house, and we end up with 4 couches and beds and mattresses and refrigerators and all kinds of stuff, and it inundates us with a bunch of appliances. Coming up with some kind of volume on what goes to the county as bulk items. So my recommendation is do 2. If they want to put it on the street at 2 items, we'll pick that up. Next week, if they want to put out 2 more items, we'll pick it up. If they want to put out next week 2 items, we'll pick it up. If they put out 8 items, we're going to give you a cost to haul those things away. The fourth thing on the list is make provisions to give a price for the additional pickup. And Shannon and I have been going back and forth on that. But what we're leaning towards right now is following FEMA's recommendation for what they charge for a truck and a driver. There's a number there. So we'll go out there and give an estimate of what we think that would be. Give them an estimate for that based upon the hours it would take per hour cost, and then what we anticipate the tipping fees would be if it goes to the county, or if it goes to the grinding site, it'd be no cost for tipping fees. And give the customer a chance to say, we will pick it up, this is the cost, or you can take it to the grinding site, or you can take it to the landfill, or you can call a third party and get it done. But basically, engage us, and that day we'd come out and give you a price. So those are the 4 recommendations I would say potentially for new ordinances related to sanitation, if y'all deem that that's something you would want to move forward with. And what this would allow us to do is basically control our cost. So we have a couple of bad actors that put a lot of stuff on the street, and what we were doing originally was we would get to them, we would pick them up in the order which we got to them. So we came to a big pile, we would stay at that big pile till we got it done, and we would miss 14 other smaller piles down the road, which we had 14 other people that were upset. What we do is we skip the big piles now, we move down, get the little ones out of the way, and then at the end of the day, when the resources come available, we may engage with 3 or 4 trucks when the guys come in at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, they get through their routes. We embark with more resources and get those things done as we can get them done on the bigger piles. That's definitely helped us and made us more efficient, but we need to control what's in the basic services if we're going to control cost. The other only 2 options we have are outsource some part of this, which I think will be way more expensive than this, and the other thing we could do would to add staff and equipment. So you're basically taking care of this bulk for a few people, but spreading that cost over the whole group of citizens. So trying to come up with a basic service that keeps our costs kind of in check is what I'm trying to propose here. So that was the end of my presentation, and I'll be glad to go through any of those numbers or have any discussion with you about that.
Is everybody on board with Barry's suggestions? I mean, obviously, he didn't bring anything concrete for no action needed tonight, but
I'm glad to see this, especially for the people who put debris out when they're doing a remodeling project or whatever, and they expect the city to pick it up. But your biggest problem, I guess, is like you say, is having the public informed why we didn't pick it up. So I think you have a good plan myself.
yeah, I mean, I think the deficit on the city's part, which I want to echo what Jonathan said earlier. I mean, I think y'all do an excellent job on the whole, but I do think we can always improve, and I appreciate some of these suggestions, but I think the deficit's been in communication and education, and then accountability. Holding those few bad actors that are really spoiling it for everybody else, holding them accountable. And I would question, are we thinking outside the box? If we weren't picking up this debris and this bulk today, but we were going to start tomorrow, like what equipment will we have? What staffing levels will we have? What level of service will we offer? And I really want to ask about that equipment. Just doing some. I mean, I know the clamshell things are used across the country to pick up things like limbs and everything, but I know some municipalities have specialized equipment to pick up things like grass and leaves and things that can be vacuumed up. Because a lot of I'll call, let's say, a friend out on, why are you putting that in the road? You're not supposed to do that. And of course, the answer is always, well, they dig up my yard. If they wouldn't dig up my yard, I would put it there. So either education and communication on how you could situate this for us not to dig up the yard, or maybe a gentler piece of equipment could be explored to get those things that could just be potentially vacuumed up. I don't know, just
That's a great suggestion. That's something that, up to this point, we've been trying to get the equipment that was truly broken to replaced. But as we're trying to move forward, in the right way, I will definitely consider that, and we will look at that and give a recommendation back.
And I don't know anything about any of it, so that's nothing more than brainstorming.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that anything else for Barry on that? So I've got a request from our city attorney for the reasons of legal advice and good name and character to go into executive session. We expect this to last approximately 20 minutes and don't expect to discuss any other business in work session when we return. So we would simply recess and reconvene in regular meeting at 6 o'clock. So I'll entertain that motion.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Second?
All right, so we got a motion and a second to go into executive session, like I said, for the stated reasons of legal advice and good name and character. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Like I said, we should be back just prior to 6 o'clock so we can convene in regular meeting.